Next up, we have Thunder Gold. Thunder Gold is exploring in the prolific Ontario region. Some interesting news recently, interesting drill intercepts. So hopefully we get an update here. To present the story is Wes Hanson, President and CEO, veteran in the space. Take it away, Wes.
Veteran in the space. Been doing this for too long. It's really unusual to be up here today. You know, usually I'm doing these presentations. I have a nice shirt and a suit jacket and a pair of track pants and slippers. So it's a little bit different. Thunder Gold, I like to say, is it's the right project at the right time with the right team, and those are the three keys to any successful exploration venture. I think we've got the right project. There's a geologist with over 45 years experience and worked in every aspect of the industry. I've seen a lot of these projects over the course of my career. I was happily retiring until David Speck, our CFO, was in the audience today, contacted me out of the blue and asked me about joining a company called White Metals. It was named White Metal at the time. And I said no several times because I didn't need the headache or the hassle. I mean, being a CEO of a junior is a thankless job at the best of times. And they kept harassing me to sort of look at the data. And I finally looked at the data and I went, damn, maybe I do want to be involved in this. So I joined the company in June of last year, and I think the timing is perfect. I'm very, very bullish on gold, and I think anybody in this room should be bullish on gold because I think there's a lot of upside potential in both the price of metal, but more so in the price of the companies that are actively exploring for it. There's a huge supply-demand gap that's emerging. We look at Western society and we say, oh, gold's dead. You know, the virtue signaling and, you know, gold doesn't add anything to, in terms of environmental sustainability and all of these issues that you see arising. The rest of the world doesn't see that. I mean, they're buying gold like it's going crazy in China and India and the emerging economies of the world. And that middle class, which is not based in America, is going to drive the future. That's as simply as I can put it. Forward-looking statement. Everything I'm about to say is the whole truth, nothing but the truth. So help me God. The right project, I think I see potential for a tier 1 discovery at this particular location, like an asset of over 10 million ounces. If you can get the dollars into the ground, if you can raise the dollars and get them in the ground, which is where the dollars should go instead of management pockets, get the money in the ground. That's our job as a junior explorer. Very few. This is the best aspect of this particular project. There is just few technical, environmental, and social risks. There's no water to deal with. There's really no First Nations issues to be challenging us in the future. It's immediately beside a highway, paved road access, year-round access in an Archean greenstone belt in Ontario, one of the world's best jurisdictions. Just a lot to like here. And Thunder Bay is a resource town. They're hewers of wood and carriers of water, and they enjoy that. And that's how Canada was built. Let's be real. Premium location, world-class access, excellent geophysical vectors that we're using and testing with current drill programs that are just wrapping up. Very favorable metallurgical response from the initial samples, like recovery of over 90% is possible here. Low cost entry points for all you investors. Like, we're trading at 5 cents. Come on, what's the rip? 5 cents. You can't. You're in Vegas. You pay $10 for a coffee, for Christ's sake. Low cost exploration equals more dollars in the ground, and that's our focus going forward. Management board have a lot of large tonnage, low grade experience. There's 3 geologists on the company with over 40 years of mineral industry experience, primarily focused on large tonnage, low grade gold deposits. So all of those things are favorable. This is my promotion for the right time, but I don't have to tell you people this. Gold has been the second best performing sector in the investment portfolios over the last 25 years. It's poised to move higher, I believe. All the equities are discounted at all-time lows, regardless of whether you're a senior, an intermediate, or a junior. You're struggling right now. So now is the time to buy. If you're bullish on gold and you believe in gold, now is the time to be buying gold equities across the board. Like, sprinkle your portfolio. One thing that's interesting in Canada is all of this talk about critical minerals and breaks for critical minerals, et cetera, that's going to positively impact gold miners as well. Because you can't give it to one. Like, you can't make the permitting process easier for one group preferentially over another. So I think that's going to have huge benefits going forward. And then, of course, when I joined the industry at Tartan Lake many years ago, it was down here. Now it's up here, and it's climbing. And all of that value add basically started when I joined Kinross around this period of time. I mean, that value growth in gold has been tremendous. I've told you about myself. You don't need to hear anymore. David Speck is in the audience. He's our CFO. 35 years of capital markets experience. We have 167 million shares issued and outstanding currently, which isn't the greatest number. 14 million options. Most of those expire, I think, in 6 months. We granted ourselves 1-year options as incentive opportunity for the employees. There's 11 million warrants, but they're between 6 and 18 cents. We've expired or terminated about 40 million warrants in the last year. Insiders hold 15%, retail about 60%. Institutions, which are primarily flow-through investment funds in Canada, hold the remainder. They'll be selling starting at the end of the month. There's just nothing else you can do as a junior. When you're in this space and you're relying on flow-through financing, you're always going to pay that price. We do have 2 million in the treasury. We'll probably close the half at about the million to 1.25 million. Our burn rate when we're not exploring is about 50,000 a month. Elliot Strachan is chairman. Bonnie Linda Bartok joined the board, and she's a social governance expert. Warren Bates and Dr. Scott Jobin Bevins are the other 2 geologists who you may or may not be familiar with. And Nigel Lees is a professional director. This is an airborne shot of the property, and you can see the boundary in gold. There's a hydro line. This is the main Trans-Canada Highway. The CNR, the CPR lies just off the plane map, and I've got 2 little lakes to worry about. So I'm going to get rid of them. 50 kilometers from Thunder Bay, population of 115,000 people. It's about a 2,000 hectare property. There's no significant First Nations issues that we've been aware of. The Fort William First Nation in Thunder Bay is very easy to deal with. They're very progressive, very approachable. I had a number of very positive meetings with them. I'm not anticipating any problems, but they're going to want to participate in the revenue in the future if this does turn into a major project. The model is different for Canadian greenstone belts. There's basically a core multi-phase alkalic intrusion in the center of the property. There's been several phases of that intrusion. Some of those are gold bearing. You can see that in the sampling that we've done to date. All of the exploration has been limited to the western edge of that intrusion. Nobody knows what's around the rest of it. Important point. The early exploration from 1980s to 2007 identified the UV zone and led to a series of close-spaced drill holes chasing these high-grade visible gold hits that they do see in that part of the world. And you have grades upwards of in that system, but the high grades were disjointed and associated with very small quartz carbonate tourmaline veins that they couldn't predict in terms of like stitching them up together. It's like stockwork, for lack of a better way of putting it. In 2007, they discovered the bench zone, which sits down here to the south. And the bench zone was a different beast. It featured much longer, broader intervals of mineralized rock, generally ranging between 0.1 and 1 gram per ton. Very few high-grade hits in that system. Like the highest grades are up to 5 grams per ton, maybe. You do see quartz carbonate tourmaline stockworking. It appears to be parallel to the contact, but we've got more work to do on that fact. And then subsequent to the discovery of the bench, they found the A and the Ellen and the 436 zones, which are aligned kind of on the periphery of a high chargeable IP response, induced polarization response. And that's currently our best exploration tool or exploration vector. On the left is the mag, airborne mag. The mag perfectly maps the intrusion. It's a bang on fit. And the intrusion is vertical, because you can see that in the inversions as you do depth slices, that thing just stacks right on top of each other. You can see the historical drilling in black. The white holes are basically the holes that we've just completed drilling. We started a drill program in February, finished it at the end of March, 1st of April, actually. Not an auspicious day, April 1st. But anyway, It is what it is. And that intrusion is very multi-phase. You can see the different phases lining up with different mapping of the intrusion itself. The IP, all of the mineralization with the exception of the UV, which is buried in a swamp, all of the IP survey basically highlights the historical mineralization that's been drill tested today. It's the best match. I was firmly in the camp of IP you pay until I came to this project. And I've never in my 40 years seen as close a correlation between the IP and the gold grade distribution in terms of the broad low grade envelope. So the concept is this is a halo that surrounds the intrusion. It's about 500 meters outboard from the actual intrusive contact. Actually, when you're drilling up close to that contact, what you see is almost like a deck of cards, just intrusion and volcanic, intrusion and volcanic, intrusion and volcanic. And the volcanics are mineralized next to some intrusions that are mineralized, and some of them aren't mineralized at all. And you look at it visually, I'm pretty good at this, and I can't tell. Just very frustrating for me. I hate that. But it is what it is. So drilling is the key. Basically, if you look at the stats, if you look at the entire population, it's about 4,000 samples. The average grade of the fragmental and volcanic unit, which are the host rocks, basically sits at the 0.3 gram per ton range on average. The mean is very close to the median. You know, it indicates there's not much variability in that population. When you parse the data by the IP chargeable responses and look at the fragmental and volcanics, you'll see the mean moves closer to the median, which means even less variability in the gold distribution. There's 450 samples in that population set, 5 meter composite samples, and the grade triples, goes from 0.3 to 0.9 up to a gram per ton. This is not a high grade system, folks. If you're looking for high grade gold, you're going to have to wait for somebody else to come along. Jennifer, Satori, they have it. Some of the other guys in Nevada, they have it. And you know, this is tough sledding. This is a large tonnage, low grade deposit, and I love those because you know what they offer that high grade doesn't. Anybody? Predictability, exactly, consistency. You always know what you're going to get. So this is one of our latest drill holes. We released results for the first 3. It included one hole that a headline grabber to get everybody's attention, 940 grams over 1.5 meters. I shamelessly promoted that. I'm a junior mining CEO. I got to get the news out there. So I used it to my advantage, but the story here is 159 grams at 0.7. And if you look at that, that's in a 750 meter wide envelope. So I'm doing 100 meter step outs along a 750 meter wide target just to get an idea of what the playing field. That's the goal of this exploration program that we just finished. And if you look at the actual results, you know, you get up to 3-4 grams per ton. But on average, that's very consistent. There's an unmineralized intrusion in there that's chock-a-block full of sulfides. I was shocked it didn't run, but didn't run. Can't do anything about it. There's only 7 intervals in the 25,000 sample data population that return grades of over 15 grams a ton. So there's not a lot of grade capping to be done in this group. There's over 10,000 meters of additional IP targets that have yet to be drilled or tested in any form whatsoever. There are some surface samples of some of them. In fact, the highest surface samples in the property were collected here at the P in the Papa zone, along about a, you know, that's, where is it? P Papa. That's a 1,400 meter wide, long by 250 meter wide IP chargeable response that has a single drill hole in it on the edge of the intrusion where we know there's mineralization on the opposite side. So I need money. I need a lot of money. Cutoff grades, these are typical cutoff grades of operating gold mines around the world, several of which I've worked at, like Round Mountain, Paracatu. Didn't work at Rainy River, but I did a review on that. I did a review on Malarctic, said it wouldn't work. Oops. I mean, that's what we face as an industry. I mean, the company I was working for at the time had no long-term vision on the price of gold. Had they done so, they could have picked up Malarctic and they'd be in the driver's seat in terms of, they'd be where Agnico Eagles. So, you know, those guys are producing 700,000 ounces a year from mill feed that's under a gram at a cutoff grade of 0.3. And just another comparable that shows the majority of the operating mines in Ontario and Canada, both the operating mines and the ones in development. There's the 1 gram line and dash there. All of those open pits are under a gram in terms of their average grade. So that's what we're looking for here. At Tower Mountain, if we do the statistics, we don't have a mineral resource that I can speak about. But if you just look at the statistical breakdown of the data population, what you see at a 0.3 cutoff grade, it comes out to an average grade of about a gram, just north of a gram. Not high. What this project really needs is discover that high grade core that Detour has, that Malarctic has, that 15 to 25 to 50 meter wide zone of 2.5 to 3.5 grams per ton. That gives you a starter pit. So my bet is somewhere in that 10,000 meters of unexplored IP chargeable response. We got that. We just got to find that thing. And that's a labor intensive process. Hate this. Grade is king. Anybody ever heard that before? That's bullshit. What's king is predictability, right? The high grade mines are no more beneficial than a low grade mine. It just depends on your throughput. So if you look at the all-in sustaining cost of the major operations here that are listed down here, this is a 3-year look back of some of the largest mines in Canada. On the left are Detour Lake and Canadian Malarctic. They're both producing 700,000 ounces a year, and they both move a lot of rock. And the average grades there are under a gram, and they're all in sustaining cost, $100. 2 highest grade mines in Canada, Bruce Jack and Macassa. Bruce Jack, you never hit a target, ever. But Bruce Jack and Macassa, 8.5, 9 grams, and 16 grams per ton respectively. $900, all in sustaining cost. And the numbers don't lie. So grade isn't king, predictability is preferred, and that's why Agnico Eagle is one of the best mining companies in the world. They understand. Preliminary metallurgy, very favorable. The kinetics are great, very quick leach time. The metallurgical report suggests recoveries of over 90% will be attainable. The only caveats on that is your hardness. It's hard rock. I think the bond work index was 20. Not ideal. I'll admit that. But countering that, all of the mineralization is net acid consuming. So there's no net acid. There's no acid generating problem with the waste rock or the ore. We've done a lot in the last year. We relogged 25,000 meters of core to bring everything down to a standardized system in the hope that that would lead us to conclusions. Didn't help. Like, I'm thinking AI is the way to go, like a high resolution camera that can distinguish between quartz veins and the host volcanic rock. I think the quartz veining is important here, but we don't understand, the frequency or the amount of quartz veining necessary to give you that increase in grade to get from the 0.5 gram on average up to the 1.5 gram average. We just finished our 4,000 meter drill program. Results are trickling in. Results always trickle in. The highlight so far is 941 grams over 1.5 meters. Don't put any stock in this. Like I said, I shamelessly promoted the hell out of that just to get everybody's attention because nobody knows who we are, right? Like, let's face it. You gotta stand out from the 2,500 competitors. Some of you are in the room, so that's what we're trying to do. We expect to have our results in by. They're coming in a bit faster than I anticipated, so I think probably by the 1st of May we'll have everything wrapped up. Get those out to the market, and then start looking at planning on a follow-up drill program and figure out how we're going to finance it, whether we go back to the toll-through funds. These are just other comparables that show the opportunity. A number of projects throughout Canada, their mineral resources on the, their mineral resource over here on the right versus their market capitalization. And this is just to get an idea of what the current market values inferred, measured, and indicated, and proven and probable resource is at. And the reason why is looking forward. Before we do drilled meters versus the total resource of the same projects, and what you note, there's a lot of drilling that goes into these, particularly large tonnage, low grade deposits. Detour had over 1 million meters of drilling when they did their feasibility study. 560,000 at the Greenstone project. Code's 330,000 meters. You can see that the smaller resources are always linked to less drill density or less drilling. On average, what you see is basically for every meter drilled, you're adding 35,000 ounces into the mineral resource category for those projects. You definitely want to be on the left. Guys over here on the right, it's probably they're going to have some challenges, but I mean, I think in all cases, most of those are going to continue drilling and adding to their data. And the reason for all of that information is basically our plan is to double the resource every year. So we're targeting a 6 million ounce resource by 2025. That's going to require about 180,000 meters of drilling in total. That's 150,000 more than we currently have. And every meter of drilling is going to cost us $250. So you guys can do the math. There's a lot of money going to be going out the door here. But it's all worth it at the end of the day. This is a picture of the visible gold. But I've been doing this a long time. I remember the best visible gold I ever was associated with was a project in Nova Scotia. And we could pull out 7, 8 ounce nuggets of gold. But in terms of greenstone belts, it was one of the best pieces of media I've ever come across. I was a little disappointed when the geologists missed it. Fortunately, the geologist who was logging it was my son, so he's had a miserable life for the last several months. But anyway, he did a pretty good job, all things considered. So with that, take some questions.
Thank you, Wes. Do we have any questions for Thunder Gold? Yeah.
I don't think I included that, but it's 20. On work index is 20 kilowatt hours, whatever it is, kilowatts per kilowatt hour. So.
Your target on the east side of the
Yep.
That's all you've done out that way?
That's all we've done out that way.
Why?
It's as you get farther away, the intrusion itself is hillside, obviously. They call it a mountain, which is really unusual because it's like 500 feet of topography, but it is kind of a hill. And that sticks out in the swampland that surrounds it, kind of deal. So everything's buried. You know, interestingly, there's a very close correlation between where the gold is and mag lows, right? And the neighbors next door, this is a huge mineralized system. The neighbors 5 kilometers away, Delta Resources, they've jumped from the same market cap that we're currently at, like 8 million. They're up to 45, 50 million right now on the strength of about a dozen drill holes. They're chasing an east-west contact trend that's structurally controlled. We see no structure in this, like nothing. There's no penetrative fabric at all. It's just fractured, micro-fractured, and then flooded with mostly pyrite. There's no other metals of economic interest at all. There's some correlation with silver. There's some correlation with copper, but the grades are not high enough to be economically material yet, at least in the portion of the deposit we've drilled so far. Tellurium, yeah, tellurium seems to be that's the closest correlation to gold is tellurium. So that's similar to the Springpole project, which is about 150 kilometers away. In fact, there's a lot of similarities to Springpole, including the size of the resource, which is quite fine. That's alkalic. Yeah. Interesting from a geological perspective, having a blast. Like, you know, the geology stuff's the fun part. It's going out begging for money. Like. That's why I'm here.
So, are there any other questions? Oh, Jessica.
We currently got about 2 million in the bank, and that's all hard dollars. All the flow through is completed. So 2 million in the treasury. Will be burning that down to about 1.25 to 1.5. Basically, we're paying taxes in a foreign jurisdiction and exchange for an asset that we lend it to a third party. So that's going to take a little bit, but our burn rate's only 50 grand a month when we're not operating, and flow through. We just put all our costs against flow through. That is the benefit of flow through, right? Investing in.
I have one question.
No.
So you were brought in, when you were brought in, you mentioned that you were looking at the historical drill results.
Yep.
And then you mentioned that when you were going through the 25,000 meters of logged drill historical records to find clues, it wasn't necessarily, didn't necessarily highlight anything that you said it didn't really provide any clues for the short term.
That's right. So, I mean, and Brent the importance of having a geological model that predicts where your grade is paramount when you're trying to do a mineral resource estimate. If not, what you're doing is using grade shells or boundaries, and that's never really an optimum product. So what we want to do, or what I'm desperately trying to do, is come up with a geological explanation as to why the gold is there, and then apply that knowledge around the rest of the perimeter of the intrusion, which is over 8,000 meters of strike length. So think of it like a donut that you're taking a bite out of, right? In the center is that intrusion, which may or may not be mineralized in some areas. Nobody knows. Nobody drilled the intrusions historically. They weren't of interest in gold explorers because they were all looking for Red Lake deposits. So there's no structure here like Red Lake. There's no quartz veining here like Red Lake or any other Archean greenstone gold deposit. This is why it's still there, and I think this is huge. The Shabandoan greenstone belt is one to keep an eye on. I think there's going to be a number of companies come out of that belt with very compelling gold stories, large tonnage, low grade opportunities that are going to make investors very happy.
Thank you, Wes. Thank you for the update on Thunder Gold.
Cool. Great to be here.